Hey everybody, the next project on my 1966 Lincoln Continental is continuing to go through the brake system. I already uploaded a video earlier about the removal of the master cylinder, including the metering block and the brake booster. And I'm now going to continue taking off the rest of the brake system, including the proportioning valve, the calipers and the discs in the front, including the rubber lines, as well as the drums and shoes in the back. So let's get started on that project now. To remove the proportioning valve will be pretty easy. First, we just have to break loose the line that goes from the proportioning valve to the rear brakes using that 3/8 inch flare wrench. And then there's also going to be a bolt that holds on the proportioning valve on the inside of the fender well, which will most likely be around a 9/16. So let's take those off now. We're now going to remove the bolt that holds in the proportioning valve, which I incorrectly stated was a 9/16, and instead it will be using a 1/2 inch socket to remove. We can now easily remove the proportioning valve, which is just being held on with a dowel that was inside of the fender well. So this is now out of the car. We're now ready to remove the front brakes, and we're going to start by removing the rubber line on the driver's side, which is going to use a combination of the 3/8 flare nut here, and we'll use a 9/16 here to hold it while we remove the line. Great, that side is now off. We're now going to take off the hard line that goes from the caliper to the back side of the bracket here, again using that same 3/8 flare wrench. And we're now going to just cut off the wires that are going through the bolts here on both the top and bottom bolt for removal of the caliper. We can now remove the 2 caliper bolts, which are going to be using a 13/16 socket. Great, the caliper is now off. We're now ready to take off the hub assembly as well as the rotor, and we'll first start by taking off this dust cap. With the dust cap now off, we'll remove the cotter pin, we'll remove the locking nut, we'll remove the adjustable nut, and then the flat washer out of the spindle. We'll now take off this nut using a 1 1/16 socket. We're now done with the front driver's side. I'm now going to move to the front passenger side. I will not be recording that because it's the exact same steps that we just went through. So the next part of this video is when we move to the back to remove the drums and the shoes. We are now to the rear of the car where we are going to remove the full drum brake assembly, which includes the drum, the shoe assembly, as well as the wheel cylinder. And we're going to start by taking off the drum. And before we start taking off this assembly, we're going to go ahead and spray this down with some brake clean. And now we can remove those springs. With the springs now off, we can remove the cable. We are now ready to remove all 4 shoe hold down springs. With the hold down springs now removed, we can now move on to remove the rest of everything over here, including the adjusting screw, the pivot nut, and all of the automatic adjustment parts. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. And the last thing we have to remove here is the wheel cylinder. And I'm showing this to you on the front because the work actually has to be done on the back, so we'll move over there now. We're now viewing the back side of the backing plate. And what we need to accomplish here is we're going to have to take off this brake line, and that's going to be using that 3/8 flare wrench. And then there's going to be 2 1/2 inch bolts that we'll have to remove in order to be able to take the wheel cylinder out. And then the wheel cylinder will come out on the front side of this assembly. So let's get these bolts and brake line off now. With the brake line and the bolts now removed, the wheel cylinder will just pop right out. Excellent. All right, that now completes the full disassembly of the brake system. And in this video, we removed the proportioning valve, and in the front, we removed the calipers and the rotors, And in the back, we removed the drums, the shoe assembly, and the wheel cylinders. So stay tuned for some of the upgrades that are going to be happening with the brake system on this 1966 Lincoln Continental. Thanks, guys.